I'm on my third beer, so I'm
Should be
about
good and lubed up.
about 15 minutes away from getting belligerent.
Hello and welcome to Another Dead Pixel, a podcast about video games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, as always, Joe, and with me, the guy who has secretly admitted that he was kicked out of Japan due to his furry obsession. Nick, how you doing, Nick?
What did I say before the show? Neko fuku for my I forgot the word for secret in in Japanese. Dang it.
The
What is the
the
word?
Mario costumes were supposed to stay in game and not at the public schools.
Look,
Okay.
dude, I mean, it's one of those things where if you got it, flaunt it. And I looked great in that in that Neko fuku. So I just had to wear it out. And I got seen by the principal, and we were both wearing it. I wore it better. I'll say they got mad, and so they, it was a revenge revenge firing. What is it called? Retaliation firing. Um,
I assume they would have
dismissal,
just
not firing. Legally, the term is dismissal. Um, and that's why I can't go back to Japan anymore.
I mean, to be honest, they would have probably just invited you to lay on their lap as they cleaned your ears or something like that. Yeah, pet you gently. But yes.
That may have
Uh,
happened, may or may not. Can neither confirm nor deny.
all right. Well, on that weird note, how have you been?
I've been okay. I've been thinking about aliens, and so we
Like Romulus or like just aliens in general?
I've been thinking about. So we all watched. By all, I mean you and me. We all watched X Files a good bit. I think I've seen almost every episode. I don't remember every episode, but I think I've seen almost every episode. And I've been listening to some podcasts, and I've been hearing what the government has to say, and the government is admitting that they have footage that is real of objects that they do not understand and they cannot explain, and they are sharing this with the public. And the first thought is, oh, they just have some weird technology and they are just trying to cover it up by saying, oh, it's aliens. But I don't really think that, because I don't know why they would fly stuff where people can see and take video of, and why they would share it if that was the case, because the videos they're sharing are their own. And then, and so the other thought is that they cannot hide it anymore because everybody has a phone that can film in 4K, 360 frames per second or whatever. Um, and so they're like, okay, we got to get out ahead of this. We just have to tell people that we know that they're there and we don't know what they are. And they have documentation going back to the 50s of these things, like legitimate, real documentation. And so the other night, this has been in the news for a while, but the other night I woke up about probably 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just laid in bed and I was like, so aliens they're real. I mean, if it's a hoax or whatever, I don't know what to think about it, because like I'm just like they just seem to be real by the people, the powers that be. And first of all, I want to know what you think about it. But second of all, like, do you think it's real? And second of all, what do we do about it, Joe?
Well, the same thing we've been doing all this time. Absolutely nothing. And as far as if I believe in aliens, I've never thought that aliens didn't exist. I can't say I believe in I saw a little green man, but I also don't. It's one of those things that I believe in aliens just as like I believe in like spirits and ghosts and everything else like that. Like I can't confirm that they don't exist. It's more likely that they do in some form or another. And I don't crap on people who do believe, or like, now if you're trying to force it down my throat, being like, "Hey, wear this tin hat now," I'm like, just leave me alone. Um,
Yeah.
but like I said, it made sense. I mean, and then of course I'd argue with my friends who are super religious. I'd be like, hey, also whatever power that you believe in, they know that as a group, we're all dumb, and they like if they told us too much, we'd
Mm,
lose our minds. So like maybe they're like, you don't need to know that. Here's what
yeah,
you do need to know. Here's your book of whatever, and just live your lives. And then when the time comes, you can worry about the others later.
yeah. I mean, there's nothing to do
That's the
about
way I always looked at it.
there's nothing to do about it exactly. There's not like I just there's nothing to really do about it, but it's just mind blowing to me that like if because like I mean, if you asked me before all this, I would say yeah, there's probably aliens that are probably sentient or whatever, and they're not going to show us they're not going to show themselves to us, and they're not going to whatever they live on the other side of the universe or whatever, and they're not going to mess with us even if they have advanced technology. We're just too low level. Um, even if they're sentient or whatever. But the fact that there are these objects that people cannot explain that behave that have physics they break the laws of physics. They're the vehicles that we're seeing, and it's confirmed by multiple kinds of instruments on multiple planes by multiple different kinds of radar, and also visual, like very sober, very well trained, hot top of like air, like basically fighter pilots that are seeing this stuff with their own eyes as well. It's just wild to me, and I don't know what I mean. There's nothing to really do about it, but I'm also just, and I guess it's just the way most people feel because I mean, there's nothing to really freak out about because they're not here trying to tell us what to do or messing with us. It's just like the fact that they exist or they seem to exist. Um, I just feel like it's a bigger deal, and most people are not feeling that way. I guess because there's nothing to do about it. But
Well, if you want to
anyway,
put on a conspiracy theorist hat, what I would play with is the fact that the government totally knows what they're showing or what they're doing, but it's easier for all of us to let our imaginations run wild, and therefore, even if they have a logical explanation, for example, it's like, hey, this is test something or other, this is our aircraft, or this we know this. Then they all of a sudden they're the bad guys. Why are you hiding? They're hiding more secrets from us. We get more anxious and angry at the government.
see, I
But
would
therefore, if
almost
they're like, it's out of our hands. This is something that we don't know. We're on your side, and we also don't know what this is. So we're in this together.
mm,
You know,
I would almost prefer that because that would fit more directly into my like worldview and stuff, and it would just make more sense with everything else. But like, I mean, the kind of technology that we're talking about is just insane, and the level of and the way that they're operating is just wild. Just like
I mean,
hovering
it's
over
the
military bases. It's like why would we have our own crafts doing that? And I don't think they're really I don't think they're manned. I don't think they're piloted by actual aliens. I think they're drones from another. If they are, I don't know. I'm also like, oh, I'm sure I'm also very very aware of the possibility that somebody could come out tomorrow and say, "Oh yeah, all that stuff that you thought was real, that the government said was real, it's all actually fake, and somebody's been faking you guys out." And I'd be like, okay, I feel dumb, but also I would be like, yeah, I feel better now. Um, so it's
there's too much in life to be have anxiety over. This is not one of them, in my opinion.
yeah,
It's just because like I said, if you always believe that they're out there, then so be it. I'm like, but the other thing is, um, you have more pressing matters. How like what are you going to do for
I know, like
you
what
know
it's not
when your
like,
car breaks down?
yeah,
That's more important at this point. It's like we need you can't buy a car outright in cash. You're ready to go in debt. You want to stay in an apartment forever? Or do you want to actually go in
I
debt
just
buying a house in this day and age, this market? Ooh, yeah. So
I
I
just
say of all the things to worry about now, when they start knocking at your doorstep or they try to give you Soylent Greens or something, then we'll worry. But
mm,
Until then,
Soylent
and
Greens
plus they
people.
made it, if they can make it all the way over here, we're doomed anyways.
Well,
So
that's the
just bow
thing
down
is
to
like
the
they're
alien
not
overlord.
like they haven't killed us because they could obviously very easily kill us. But um, yeah,
Not when
and
they're taking over the people from the inside, the whole Scientology, the Reploids, or whatever you want to call them.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, do we
yeah,
have aliens walking among us? That's pretty messed up and weird. But yeah, the other thing is like they probably have PS9. You know, uh, PlayStation 9. You remember that commercial back in the day
yep,
where it's
yep.
like,
The orb, yep. The
yeah,
liquid, the little glass crystal. Yeah,
I know they've got that in their damn ship, and I want to play it. So they need to come down here, and I don't want any probes in any cavities of my body. But I will keep their secret if they let me play PS9 and Monster Hunter 58 or whatever they'll be on by
what you
then.
don't realize is we're going to be there for their enjoyment of reality TV, and so we're all going to have to go through our version of the cube, and that is going to be our future life is their reality TV for.
I never saw the Cube. Is that?
Oh,
Uh,
that's great. It's actually one of my all time favorite like horror movies, as it were.
I'll put it on my
Um,
list.
so if anyone watches it, it's watch the first. The second one is not as good. The third one is Cube 3
Oh,
Hypercube, which is a prequel, which is solid. It's better than
mm,
it's better than the second. So it goes 1, 3, and 2.
1997. Dang, I didn't. I thought it was like the or like mid 2000s. Okay, okay, 97. Interesting. I watched Platform a long time ago. Did you ever see that or The Platform? It's a
Yeah.
Spanish movie.
I remember watching like half of it. I didn't bother finishing it.
Okay, it was
I
all
don't know.
right.
It just
It was
didn't for
dumb,
some reason.
but
It
it was all right.
Yeah, and that's exactly like the cube is dumb, but also it's great because it was something like before. I feel like it influenced a lot of things. Like
Mm,
from there, you get stuff like Danganronpa and stuff like that. I mean, granted, that's all like people voting and like accusing each other of things, but it's just tense dynamics. The kind of concept is someone wakes up in a cube
mm.
and they don't know exactly what's going on, and there's literally there's an exit hole out of every each side of the cube. So you up, down, left, right, forward, back, and it may or may not be booby trapped in the next
Oh,
room. So
fuck! How do you
yeah,
figure it
it's
out?
and then people end up survivors get together and they're trying to figure things out. I don't know. It's a simple movie. It's really simple, but it's just like I can't like for the budget they made it. Like I think it's a great movie. And it's just
Hey, man,
it's
a
it's
good idea
a
is a good
fun
idea,
fun thing.
and that's just the way it
So
goes. Thank you for telling me
they
about
did
that.
recently remake it though, so don't watch the remake.
Okay.
That one is it's like a straight to Japanese like release. So unless if you like really bad Japanese like acting and stuff,
Well, you know I'm
uh
old school, and I'm always gonna go for the OG. So
yeah. So all right, but once again, aliens, yeah, they exist, but what are we gonna do about it? Hopefully get on their good side.
gosh, I mean, I've said things publicly that I don't think I can take back. Like, if they're aliens, then we have to kill them. Like, I don't know what else we're gonna
Well,
do with them.
it was nice knowing you. I'll just
They heard me. I know that my phone heard me say that, so that I know they have that information.
well,
I
that's
didn't
the thing
mean
is
it.
you were saying if they're walking among us, they obviously own all the big tech companies, and
Mm.
that's how they've been controlling us all. Elon Musk, he's one of them. You know he
I
is.
mean,
I
Zuck
mean,
is
any
definitely.
Scientologist
He's like
is
not even
one thing.
hiding as a lizard person.
I mean, but that's when the big reveal happens. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Totally. I mean, like you're telling me Trump is a what? Oh yeah, that totally makes
Dude,
sense.
if Trump
Okay.
was a lizard
Uh,
person, I would totally believe that. I mean, it almost makes more sense than reality. Oh my
I
god.
mean, it's I figure almost any politician at some point is some sort of
Nancy Pelosi.
either alien or some sort of demonic. They have some demonic ties. They have some sort of
Well,
deal with the devil, whatever. So
it's that Mike it's that freaking Men in Black, the screen on Men in Black. It has like where all the aliens are, and it's like Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, and a bunch of famous people that they're aliens. And it's like that's pretty funny because they're like that talented
yeah,
because they're freaks, aliens. You know.
was it
Just,
was it three that they end up meeting Andy Warhol, and then he's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then no,
uh,
Andy Warhol's not actually, or something like that.
is yeah, Andy Warhol. Yeah, he definitely. He's not like if he was an alien, he wouldn't even be hiding it. I love some Andy Warhol quotes. He is so great. Um, anyway, I think
So
is Men in Black 3 the one? There's a fourth one, right? With Thor with
oh
Matt
yeah,
Hems
I didn't even bother with that one.
Chris Hemsworth.
Um, 3 retroactively makes 1 better. I actually think I
Mm,
really like 3, but it's not as I mean, 1 would still be my favorite, but I don't know, 3 just it ties it back around in a certain way that makes a lot
mm,
more sense, and,
okay.
uh, 2 is just 2, I mean,
Yeah, because
so
3 has that weird sort of time travel stuff. Not really time travel, but
yes.
like it's like peering back and doing. That's like Will Smith's character's agent. What is it?
K?
Agent J or is he K or J?
J, J.
He's J.
I
Yeah.
don't know, J maybe, and then K, like, he goes back and meets young K,
Mm.
and so, yeah. Like I said, 3 is a solid one. It's
Yeah.
one of the few ones that like, dude, the 3rd one's actually really, really good, compared to what you'd expect. But
Yeah.
2nd one's also kinda bad, so
Yeah, they had to get it
alright.
back.
Speaking about kinda bad, alright, let's you go over the news for
Freaking
the, Nintendo
hater.
Direct.
Freaking Nintendo hater. That's fair this time though. So Nintendo partner show, Nintendo semi direct thingy. I started to watch this the other night and I was like, this is boring. And I switched it off to do something else. So I skipped through today and watched a little bit here and there. So yeah, they had a direct. And I'm reaching the level now of frustration and irritation at Nintendo because they're saying, "Hey, here's a direct. We're not going to talk about the successor to the Switch." And I mean, I appreciate that they're putting it out there, but I'm just like, y'all need to quit having directs here. You're not help. Nobody cares. Just announce the thing individually, whatever you're going to do. Nobody gives a crap until you have something to say, which the next words out of your mouth, Nintendo, is Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever the freak dolphin whale orca thing you're going to call it. I don't know. But that's what you need to do. And until then, don't waste our time with the direct. But that's the beer talking. So the part
Well, I was gonna say they have shareholders they have to answer to, man. So that makes
they
sense
have to
why they
answer to
throw this
me.
out there.
Yeah,
You're not an important shareholder, put it that way.
that's fair. I'm
Um,
definitely not important.
so that's the bit though. It's they have to get people somewhat excited for the fall lineup. As we know, nothing's about the Switch until later. Also, though, they want to trick the common person and the silly mom and dad who don't know anything about anything, and they're hoping that they'll be suckered into buying a Switch just before they announce the new one. So they're gonna
Well,
hold off as long as possible. They won't. And my bet is they won't announce the Switch 2 until like end of first quarter uh, next year, because
yeah.
that way they'll go through the entire holiday season dead silent. So no one who knows, grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad, they don't know any better, or like the elementary school kid who finally gets enough holiday money, birthday
Oh
money. They're gonna go
no.
ahead and buy the thing right before it gets out of date, and they're gonna
Oh
roll in
gosh.
that cash and just laugh in their face.
Kids
The
like
plus side is
14.
the catalog of old games will be there, but when all their kids start upgrading because they've had it forever, that poor little Timmy is gonna be screwed.
He's like
And Nintendo's
14
just gonna
and he's been saving money for like 4 years to be able to buy a Switch
if
mowing
they're 14,
lawns.
they're just gonna go straight to like anything with blood in it, like R-rated, M-rated
Yeah,
games.
he's just gonna like he's just gonna root it and then watch Prawn with his Nintendo Switch anyway. Yeah, I would appreciate it if they were like we're like Shirutse Shimas. Why did I say it that way? Gomenasai Shitsure Shimas.
Consideration. Okay. I was wondering what the hell you're saying.
Shitsure Shimas. We're gonna lower the price $50 or something. I'd be like, okay, thank you for throwing us that bone. You're clearly trying to move switches to get rid of your back catalog because you're definitely going to actually give us a real Switch here any second now. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, the task at hand Nintendo Direct partner show. Morsels is a weird looking game that I kind of like how weird looking it is. I probably will not play it, but I appreciate the weird close ups and colors, lightning bolts, pigeons. I don't even know what the game is about or what the point of it is, but it definitely looks unique, and in that way, it does look kind of fun. You were saying something before we started the show. You said it looks like it reminded you of some other game.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Binding of Isaac. The that whole top down shooter, uh, kind of gross, squishy, organic aesthetic. This looks like if you took the Binding of Isaac and then went from like Nintendo to Super Nintendo or something like that.
It
You
does,
up the
yeah.
look, you up the art, the graphics. It's a different team. This one was what is it, Ferracula or something like that. But this was just like I said, it looked neat, but at the same time, I'm not interested in this look. The
Yeah.
look is not for me. It's kinda like how I felt like Hollow Knight. I know it's a great game. This one's
Mm,
probably gonna be a great game, like a really good game, but it's just the art. Yeah, I just don't like to look at it enough. So I'm like, all right.
yeah,
Uh,
at the very least, it doesn't look bad, and you should go check it out if you're into weird art styles because it is a little bit, it's definitely doing its own thing. But we don't know, right? We don't know that it's related at all to Binding of Isaac.
I don't think it is.
Okay,
I don't
it's
think
just
it
something
is
you
at all.
reminded you of. Okay,
So that was just the my knee jerk reaction. I'm like, yeah, this kind of has the same feel, the top down shooter, look, has that little organic squishy look, but Binding of Isaac's obviously much more toned down, simplistic, I guess would be a polite way to
gray.
put it,
Yeah,
for the art style. And but I believe I don't think there's any connection at all, or else I believe they would have just straight up said that in the trailer as well,
yeah.
because that would
That
have been a huge selling point.
Yeah, the Binding of Isaac guys. I don't even know what they're doing right now, but yeah. So that was the only thing in here that I was sort of piqued my interest about that I haven't already talked about before. Obviously, we got I don't know if this is the first time they announced a date for Neva, but they announced October 15th for Neva. So I'm tangentially excited about that. I don't know where I will play it. I'll probably try to play it on PlayStation, but I definitely if it's even on there. But that was the only thing that I was like, okay, that is a pretty likely that I'll play that soon after it comes out. Because it probably shouldn't be that expensive. And then other than that, like Coffee Talk was like, okay, that's kind of a cool looking game. That's a good look to a game. I'm not gonna play it. And then there was one more little thing. Oh yeah, I keep telling you about Sea of Stars. I'm just like, I feel like I should play that, but I also don't want to, um, because I just
I remember trying the demo and thinking this was neat, but there was just something about it that just wasn't clicking with me. So and it's very much
uh,
up my alley where I'm a huge RPG fan of the 16-bit Super Nintendo era, and that it hits all the right notes. It just for
mm,
some reason something about it was just not clicking with me.
it
So, but I can
it's
see it. I think it's just a me thing on that one, and I think a lot of people would indeed like it. But I
well,
mean, this showcase had a lot of weird things too, so
yeah.
that's
I mean,
like
it's
power washing
nostalgic.
simulator with Shrek, yay. You
Yeah,
know?
I saw the word Shrek and I was like, I'm out. But the Sea of Stars, like it looks nostalgic, and I think that's sort of what's turning me off about it. Is I'm just like, I just feel like you're nostalgia baiting me. You're just trying to like get me into that, and then I also have like other games that are like that are just higher up the backlog list that I need to play. So it's a DLC for it anyway, but which good on them for going ahead and getting the DLC out. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I saw. I think you had a couple things that you sort of liked from this though, right?
Yeah, one of which I saw, I instantly thought of you, and that was, Date Everything. So I thought
Damn it, Joe.
that
We
was
talked
most
about
definitely
this
your.
before the cast. We agreed that we weren't going to talk about this on the cast.
That's okay. I mean, you should just, fully accept it. I mean, this way you can interact with the vacuum cleaner of your dreams, and
I mean, the girl with like insanely ripped abs did catch my attention. I will be honest.
I mean, There's probably there looks like to be a bunny girl and a goldfish girl or something like that. So there you go.
You had
But
me.
yeah.
You had me at
Anyways,
Bunny Girl.
I mean, you have at least one figure, if not two, on the way. But yeah. So we
I
have,
have so many
I don't know, they
ordered.
just have a lot of odd things they for this thing. I mean, it's just, I don't know, a new Shovel Knight collection or something along the lines. I'm like, I thought Shovel Knight's been done to death, so I was like, okay.
They're never gonna stop
Um,
peddling that shit, shoveling that shit.
there you go. It would have been better if you hit it off the bat the first time, not having to
We're
recorrect
gonna
yourself.
cut
But
it so it sounds good, though.
all right. Metal Slug Tactics. I mean, I
Mm.
know this. They've already mentioned this before, so but now they've kind of narrowed down the window. I don't believe they had that. It's fall of 2024. Metal Slug art style, but a tactics based game. Any decent tactics game is always pretty fun, and I'm a big fan of Metal Slug universe, so that should be good. Uh, they have Suikoden 1 and 2. So they finally announced March 2025, and they had the music playing in the background. One of my favorite soundtracks of all time.
These are classic
I think I
games.
like Suikoden. Yeah, I have them both on PlayStation 1. So yeah, it's one of those things I like. Maybe
So
now is a good time to sell it.
the
Wait until it comes out,
yeah.
and then see what I can get for it.
Sell that.
Uh,
Yeah, you should put it in a plastic case and get it Beckett rated. These are like 100 and something characters, right?
108 Stars of Destiny. Yep,
Okay.
108 characters. The game from the first one, it had save data that you can port over to the second one. Then you were able to port over data from the second one to the third, technically, which was weird because you had to have a special thing to move from PS1 to PS2. And then you're able to transfer some of the data from 3 to Tactics, I think. So, yeah, that game franchise was always pretty fun. The latter stuff I never paid much attention to, but those first three games were always really good. And number two is probably still my favorite. The combat, turn-based RPG, but they did a really neat thing where you can combine special attacks depending on who's in your party. And yeah, it has a bunch of variation endings because obviously there's a lot of people you can miss. Um, it's actually really funny because one of my friends was like, they also had the game. They're like, "Yeah, I always really liked this character. Like she's always like this was always my favorite character. She's the waifu." And I'm like, "You mean the guy?" Like, "No,
Mm.
no, this girl right here." I'm like, "No, no, you mean that guy."
That's a
And
dude.
they're like, "Wait a
No.
minute." And then I'm like, "Look it up. I guarantee you it's a dude. You do not remember. You're like, you must have not played the game enough to realize this." But that person very early on looks feminine, but very much is a guy. And it's like, oh, like it was just
God,
we as we were moving from one house to another, we just continually made fun of him the entire time.
dude.
I'm like, this explains a lot. I'm like, then again,
You
that
should put
art
that guy on
style.
Suicide Watch. Uh, yeah. So, quick shout out. A couple years ago, I don't really watch him anymore, but I think I had COVID, and I was like sick, but I wasn't like in bed because I was just tired of laying in bed. So I was just sitting in a chair watching YouTube, and there's a guy that came up, a particular YouTuber called Gaming Broductions, and he's a little bit green at the time, I guess, but he did some videos on Suikoden, and and he got me to like it. I was like, okay, I don't know if I really want to play these, because they're just not that high on my list, but he expounded on why they were good and stuff like that, and so I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So if you're not really familiar with Suikoden, then I think you could go watch his videos. Not too many views, only 44,000 views on his beginning of Konami's iconic RPG series video, but it's definitely efficient, and it will get you up to speed, at least give you an idea of whether or not you would like this stuff. So anyway, I just want to shout that out. But yeah, like Suikoden, I It would be nice. I would like to play that again. Do you think that you'll, or I would like to actually try to play that for the first time. Do you think that you'll actually get this and try to play some hours of it, or is it just something that you see from afar and enjoy that way?
I'm kind of curious about it because they have some, quality of life improvements in it, so I think it'd be easier to play for sure, or it'd be the better way to do it. I would not play on the Switch, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be coming to other things, almost, guaranteed. So, yeah, it's one of those that I kinda want to, but it's also an old school RPG, and I don't know if I can dedicate, like, the
Dude, yeah.
20 to
90
40
hours.
hours.
Oh, okay, 40, yeah.
So yeah, it's uh, I do really like it, and I do recommend it though. Like I said, that soundtrack is still with me as one of my favorites of all time, and the
Mm,
story was super good. I felt like it was I. The only reason why I don't like it better than certain Final Fantasies is the Final Fantasy games came into my life first,
yeah.
so therefore it was like that's generally what molds you is what you lean towards, but still it's really high up there, top 5 hands down.
Yeah, you never
And
forget your first, as I say.
so we have here, like I said, a bunch of other remakes and stuff like that they're bringing to the Switch. They're the Tales of Grace F remastered. Of all the Tales games, I don't think this one's that important. I also don't trust them after they screwed up Tales of Symphonia.
Okay, so it is
So
that series. Okay.
yeah, it's the Tales of series. So
Mm.
um, yeah, and then there's
How did they
they're
screw
bringing
up Tales of Symphonia?
Tales of Symphonia. I think they ported over a mobile version,
Oh,
and so that was the reason why the GameCube version was 60 frames, and then the current version. I don't know if they ever fixed it. I know they didn't fix it. If they did fix it, they waited at least a long time before they did. But
mhm.
it was they brought it to 30 frames because I think it was the mobile port or whatever the other port that
Oh,
they
this is
did.
that one. Yeah, you're
So
talking about.
it was like the Grand Theft Auto thing where like you don't port from they're not porting from the original, they're porting from a different remake. So
It's got to be a way
the
to
quality
save
was just
time. It's that's only only reason they would do that. I would think.
yeah, and then what they did is if people on PC found out or they worked it so like, "Oh, we can make it force it to be 60," but then everything kinda gets broken and all the sprites are there dancing in like double time speed and it's ridiculous. It was a disservice to one of their best games in the Tales series 'cause the original ones being Tales of, uh Tales of Fantasia and then Tales of Destiny 1 and 2, which were Super Famicom and PS1 games, which were my favorite ones without a
Mm.
doubt. But once again,
I do.
introduction to it. So
I do feel like Symphonia was a bit of a breakout. Maybe I was just paying more attention then, but I remember Colin Moriarty really liked that game a lot, and
the
I.
GameCube didn't have any bangers at the time, and that real not only was it a great game, but it came out on the GameCube where it
I'm
was a
sorry,
desert
not
for anything
Symphonia.
quality.
I'm sorry, I messed up. Berseria, the one with the girl with red, like a freaking basically red bikini or whatever on.
She has just yeah, it's
Is it
just a
Berseria?
skirt, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one that is correct. That came out after,
But Symphonia was
uh,
also probably really was the actual like, hey, we're here, we've arrived, and then Berseria was the one that Colin Moriarty was talking about. But I know I have heard a lot about Symphonia being very good. I
yeah,
think.
it's one of like I said, so Tales of Grace F, it's a weird one. If you're just gonna redo them, then that's fine, but at the same time, I really don't know who this is for. Uh,
Mm,
yeah, I mean, Nintendo came out with a bunch of collections, the Castlevania, Dominus collection, which is kinda cool in a way because it's all the 3DS games, Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia, I think it is. So, the last one, I don't know if I own, but I own the first 2. And yeah, those were uh, really good, especially coming after like uh, the whole Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So they followed that gameplay style, and so you really couldn't get anything else better in a sense. Like it was kind of
mm,
peak Castlevania. It was a good time to be a fan. They're doing 2 different collections for, Capcom. You have Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics and Fighting Collection number 2. So just take a look at those if you're interested in that. Uh, yeah, I mean the other one that I was kind of looking at was the Rune Factory. So Rune Factory,
It's caught my
the
attention too.
Guardian of Azuma. I mean, so it's the first time Rune Factory is done into a Eastern, like Asian setting. So that's kind of a neat thing. The original Rune Factories were always really cool. They did. I feel like they were the first ones to start doing the dungeon diving for the farm sim. Because you had the farm life, you had the farm and courting like spouse,
Hmm.
and then they added the dungeon aspect in them. If I remember correctly, they're the first ones. Um, I haven't played them in a long time. Uh, I mean, I haven't played any of those games in a long time. Stardew kind of it was peak in that sense, but like, hey, it's bringing really good visuals and it's a fun new setting. They show that you can get married in this as well, if you want. And yeah, I don't know. It's if anyone is interested in a farming life sim kind of thing, then I'd recommend this. And I think it's a good platform to be on, actually. So
Really, Switch.
yeah, I
Okay.
think Switch is like the Switch was fine. I played, I mean, the original Harvest Moon was on Super Nintendo, so I kind of feel like those all kind of belong with Nintendo in a good way. They're not too intense for like visuals. At least the previous ones weren't. So I think they all could be easily ported and then obviously brought to any other console. Outside of that, there wasn't really much else that comes to mind that I was hyper keen on for the Nintendo Direct. I felt like I felt like it was kind of short for being 40, like just over 40 minutes long, but there was just not a lot that
It
really
seemed
jumped
like
out.
it just seemed like some fluff to me. I mean, there just seemed like, yeah, it's new stuff, but it's stuff to technically be able to announce. But a lot of it just
Um,
seems sort of fluffy to me.
one that I will recommend is they did kind of show towards the end was the Legend of Heroes Tales in the Sky. So the first, which is just to say they remade Legend of Heroes uh, not Tales. I meant Trials.
Trials, yeah.
So Trials in the Sky. So the
Trails,
Trial
trials,
series,
yeah.
like this series has been amazing. Um, and
I've
I
heard
don't
they're
know
good.
exactly
Yeah.
how I've played this one and I played. There has been a couple of them that kind of interweave a little bit. Uh, I've not played them in a long time, any of the sequels or anything like that. So I'm not sure exactly if it's just solely the first game. I'd hope they throw in more, but it's a big game for what it is.
Mm.
And once again, it's one of those remakes with quality of life tweaks, so good on you for that. And then they're bringing stuff like I don't know, Worms Armageddon and like uh
Worms.
that Disney paintbrush one, stuff like that. I'm like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's disappointing. I think overall, if you like some remakes, if you missed out, if you're a first time person, that's why I'm saying like, hey, there's some really good RPGs out there that you can really try. But honestly, I'm not really sure who's it for.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're on something with like the. I don't know if you said this before. Yeah, you said this on the cast. That it's for shareholders. Like I think you're on something about that. It's hey, we got to have this direct every once in a while, so that we don't, so that we know, so the shareholders know that we're not just like twiddling our thumbs here while we wait for the Switch 2 to come out. But yeah, it's getting a little bit, a little bit tiresome. I just really I just really thought it would be out like I think in March of this year of 2024 because I feel like we were hearing about it. I mean, when did Zelda the last Zelda come out? Is in March of 23, right? So it's just wild to me. I'm sure they have the reasons. I'm sure we'll find out in a book that one of those guys writes in 20 years, but I'm tired of it. And but yeah, Rune Factory looks pretty good. Actually, that was one of the ones that kind of caught my eye. I've not been ever been a Rune Factory guy, but I was like, oh, okay, this is sort of anime, kind of cool looking game and good looking gameplay. Looks interesting. But yeah,
all right.
Tales in the Sky.
Oh,
Trials.
the odd one as well is uh, Yakuza Kiwami. I mean, granted that it was
Ugh.
I think they had originally ported it on the Wii U, so it's not like the first time it's been on Nintendo. But also Yay.
What do they call it?
Yakuza. I have a nostalgia spot for the original Yakuza game for the PS2. A buddy of mine, I think I've told this. I've had to tell a story on here before. We traded the controller back and forth while we played this game,
Mm,
and every time that was back when every time you got in a fight, it wasn't like open world active, so you had to go into a fight scene. So the
mm.
screen would like swoosh, and you'd go into like Final Fantasy 7 esque or like old RPG battle mode, and then you'd be in a little arena. But every time you do that, someone would start to swear, one of the thugs or whatever, and like you motherfucker, and then I was a transition, and like the amount of times we
It's a
heard
family
that
show, Joe.
warping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never I stopped it beforehand. I'm not the one. You're the one cursing up a storm here.
What the
4 beers
fuck are you
in.
talking about?
So we have but no, it's the game is complete melodrama and it's wild. I would tell anyone who wants to get into the
Mm,
Yakuza series to start with Zero.
cursing.
But Kiwami is also
Mm,
awesome to start in. Unless if you're going to go with Like a Dragon, which is a different main character altogether.
that might
But
be
yes,
the true best place to start. Not that I've played it, but like if you just want to start where you don't have to worry about going about the past or whatever, just doing that so you're prepared for the
I
future.
would say but Like a Dragon plays like it's turn based,
Yeah.
so it is very different opposed to the
But like
actual combat. So if you want a brawler, yeah. If you
objectively,
want to
like,
beat them up,
go ahead.
yeah. Oh, go on.
I was gonna say, objectively, Zero is often said to be this is the place where you should start because it's so good and it's like and it's the prequel to all that stuff and it's also fairly modern. It's sort of it's a prequel that was made after a lot of the others, so it's kind of refined, but also before. So I don't know. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's like the fifth or sixth game in the series.
Yeah.
Zero was, so therefore it does have the quality of life stuff. It hams up a lot of the things that had been popularized up until then,
Right.
and just over the top nonsense, which almost hurts the going to Kiwami, which is a remake as well, but because you're like, okay, you zero ends, like you do so much awesome stuff, and then there's still awesome stuff in Kiwami, but it's nowhere near as good. So you're like stepping down because you're also stepping back.
Yeah.
Uh, but honestly, yeah, it's just the Yakuza series is a lot of fun.
I guess if you
Gotta
only
love
have
it.
a
If you,
Switch, then it's. I mean, they didn't release Zero for Switch, did they?
I don't believe so.
So
I
yeah.
like I said, these Kiwami and Kiwami 2 were originally released for the Wii U, I believe.
Okay.
Um, So I think they were released on the Wii U before they were released on anything else. So
Oh, wow.
yes,
So yeah, if you only
Japan
have a
only.
Switch, then then I mean, I guess it's not a bad place to jump in if you're stuck there.
All right. And I think that's really about it for the Nintendo stuff. So you have some information about the PS5, right?
Yes, it's been reported that PS5 Pro specs have leaked more or less. So I read a long article that wanted me to look at a lot of ads, and that's why it was so long. But basically, it's probably going to be about 45% faster. And I was thinking, why? I mean, like, why are they putting it that way? They may have put it a little bit differently, but basically, so like we've talked about this on this podcast before, I think they can't release something that is the same thing, but like actually truly better. It's the weird stuff with like the Xbox Series X versus Series S, where they play the same thing, but one plays it at a higher level than the other, or at a faster rate than the other, more or less. And so that's why stuff takes longer to come out on the Series S or on Xbox stuff because they have to do with more stuff to make it run. So basically, all the PS5 games you have to be able to run, and all the new PS5 games that are going to run better on PS5 Pro have to be able to run on your old PS5. So the best way to think about it is that it will be faster. It will be they're thinking 45% faster. So the current teraflops, which I don't know why we decided on teraflops being the measuring stick by which everything is done now, but I swear, like back when I first heard the word teraflop, I was like, well, that's dumb. I hope they never use that again. And now they're using it every single time. I can tell they're trying to make that the thing, but maybe I'm just a boomer or something. I don't know, but basically,
You still want it in megabytes?
well, teraflops is like
8 to 16 to 32, 64.
I'll take it in gigabytes or terabytes. I don't know what a teraflop actually is, and even when I did care enough to read about it back when I first heard about it, it was like well, it doesn't actually mean anything, and it's very floating, and it's like floating point values, and it doesn't really mean anything, but it is a higher number, and so that's why we're going to use it for, or that's why I think it was like Xbox or something like that was using it for this particular instance. But don't be fooled. And now they're using it as like the main measuring stick. The point is that the PS5 is like 10 something teraflops or around that number, and the new one is going to be about 33 teraflops or something close to that. That doesn't mean it's 3 times better, which is also another reason why it's, pardon my French, but it's bullshit to use that number because you can't. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. But basically, it's going to mean that it's going to be about 45% better, they think. And the other thing is that the announcement for it is probably only a few weeks away. I think the article I was reading was saying that they're probably going to announce it at whatever the next game show type thing actually is. Here coming up in September.
I've been telling you that it's going to be Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, that's
that
probably
makes
it.
the most sense.
Yeah,
I've been saying that since forever because
been saying it for
course,
years.
Well, I mean, it makes the most sense. We knew it was coming out this year. Tokyo Game Show is the best because it's so close to the holiday season. There's not going to be a lot of dead time between announcement and holiday release, so you can really wind up.
So you think it's going to release this year? It's going to release for holiday?
Yeah. From everything that everyone's been saying, it just seems like it's supposed to be releasing this year. So I mean, it would make sense. Sony has come back to TGS after being away for years. So this is the first time they've actually they got booth space. They're making a big deal about it. Yeah. Of course, they're going to have a big reveal.
If they have a booth, then they're definitely freaking revealing this thing. You're right. Do you think it's going to be 600 or 5 something?
I mean, ideally it'd be 5. But
isn't the current PS5 5? So if they did the 1-2 where it was like this is 5 and we're dropping the old PS5 down to 5 until we get, or down to 4 or 450 until we get rid of them, I would be okay with that. But I'm afraid it's going to be 5. I'm afraid it's going to be 600 is what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, and that's reasonable. I mean, the only compromise I can think is if you dropped the current one to 450 and the other one to 550, it's an easier pill to swallow. It still sucks that you're paying more, but at the same time, you are getting a better thing.
Inflation.
Most people are like,
yeah.
Most people are like, well, why, well, that's the whole thing is you can't make the consoles. You can't. It's been proven that you can't make it cheap anymore, and usually. A couple years ago, we would already had the discounted model, right? You would have the slim. Well, we did get a slim, but not the slim that we were hoping. Yeah. It wasn't as slim, and also B, that's usually when parts outsourcing is cheaper,
right?
And so therefore you can get the smaller, slimmer unit, and because it's cheaper, then you just slot the new one into that the main MSRP, but. Yeah, it would make sense if they raised it up the price.
I mean, essentially,
I don't think it's gonna be more than 600 though.
I mean, essentially, like I was explaining to someone today because they were asking about it, about the PS5, and I was like, "Look, dude. So because of inflation, the fact that because of COVID, which caused them to inject so much money into the economy, that caused inflation to jump up, and because of that inflation." The fact they did not raise the price on the PS5, at least stateside, and I know they did in Europe for a little while, London and stuff, or Britain for a while, but I think they brought it back down again. The fact that overall it stayed the same, that is your price price lowering because your gas is higher, your food is higher, your whatever trinkets, whatever else you're going to get is higher. So it's staying the same is actually probably not as good as a true price drop in any other time period, but like it's the best we're going to get for the circumstances. I am betting on 600 if it is if it is 45% faster and it's coming out like right now. 550 would be a dream. 550 would be really great. 500, if they put it out for 500, I would probably write them a love letter. I don't know what I'd probably send Sony flowers or something like that because that'd be wild. So I'm thinking at least my main bet is 600 because I think that inflation pushes it up and it's not something that you have to have if you already have a PS5. So they're really getting latecomers and diehards, so I just think that's where it's going to land. But I'm glad to have it. I'm glad to have the option. I'm sure it'll be sold out for a few weeks, maybe a few months. I'll try to get it as soon as I can pre-order it. So I guess I need to be watching Tokyo Game Show really closely because if they're I'm certainly going to announce it there, then I need to be ready to jump on that pre-order so that I don't get booted out by the scalpers. But yeah, I mean, gosh, $600. I didn't really plan to spend that this Christmas, but I guess I need to put it in the budget. I guess I got to start buying ramen. So yeah. Anyway, that's all that I really had. There's a bunch of other little tiny tidbits of news, but that was the biggest thing. That and the Nintendo stuff, and 45% faster. I don't know. I just don't really feel like we need that. Like I just feel like, Helldivers.
I think you're a little hung up on the speed factor, like I said, because of all the extra processing power. The whole bit is like you'll have better frame gen, stuff like that. So I think games will run, slightly at a more steady frame rate and a little higher. They'll have the higher frame rate bump. That's kind of what it's really about.
Mm.
So I mean, once again, for the most part,
Like
most
holding
people will be
60 more
okay
or
with.
less.
Yeah, you'll be able to target 60, 40 to 60, 60 more often, but because everything else, you know, 30 is the reality that we live in. When we started this generation, we were promised slash hoping for 60. That's what we were led to believe. And the reality is, no, most games are 30. Some games will be 60. Uh, Turns out the sweet spot is for a lot of people for 120 hertz is actually screens is 40. 40 is actually a good compromise because it's divisible evenly. So
Oh, I see what you're saying.
that's
Yeah. 40, 80,
so there
120. Yeah.
yeah, but it's all about stability. And I mean, I went with the PS4 Pro, but I didn't own the PS4 at the time, and I also did that specifically because I was getting the PSVR 1, and the Pro had the extra oomph. I
Yeah.
don't feel like the VR is going to really need that extra oomph.
Mm.
Granted, any extra help is always like
Nice. Yeah.
welcome, but I'm not going to. I don't see myself buying the uh, the Pro, especially with when I feel like uh the new console shift will be just like what 2026.
Yeah.
Is a safe bet.
Yeah.
So
I mean, poser Nick here talking out my ass. I didn't have a PS4, but from what I understand and what I heard on the scene is that the PS4 pretty desperately needed a PS4 Pro. It really, I mean, people kind of shit talked it and said, well, are we doing this like iPhone, iteration type stuff all the time now? Like, I don't know if I like that, which was valid. But from what I understand, like freaking not Dark Souls, but Bloodborne. Like Bloodborne had like minute long, like 60-second long load screens, which doesn't seem all that long until you actually have to watch it while you're trying to play a game. The load screens were getting kind of out of hand. And so they were able to bring that stuff in with the PS4 Pro. And then by the time that generation ended, I mean, it was basically new games are basically unplayable on it. Not truly, but like you're just not gonna play God of War, whatever, on the PS4 one. It's just not gonna really be able to handle it in a pleasurable experience kind of way. And that is, I don't think that we're there with the PS5, which is a credit to Sony. I'd much rather have the option to get one before I need it. So I applaud them there, I guess, and I do plan to get it, unless money just gets super tight. But so yeah, I guess I'm glad that we don't need it, and I'm glad that we will have it. I'm just interested to see if they have games that are coming out that are gonna go ahead and try to use that, or if they're just gonna be like, well, we didn't really design it for this, but we designed it for like 40 frames, but now because we have the PS4 Pro, we can target pretty much 60 or 55. That's also nice too. But yeah, it's fun. I am eagerly awaiting their announcement and to see the true specs that drop and see if all this is actually even right. So, because all this is just leaked right now.
All right. Well, let's go to what we've been playing. You finally got to really tap into your VR, right? So,
Yeah.
what have you been playing?
Yeah, I play a little bit of VR here and there. And the thing that I played the most was Gran Turismo 7. I really, man, it like Gran Turismo, for what VR is right now, I just feel like it's really built for that to just slip right in there and you not really think about it at all, and it's just it's ready made. I think VR is going to be at a place someday where pretty much any game is going to be great in it, and not to say that other games are bad, but the feeling that you get when you are driving a car in Gran Turismo 7 VR, and like I'm going to change lanes, and I literally look over my shoulder to do so without really thinking about it, is pretty amazing feeling. Like when I first loaded in and I was going like on the track, and it just felt like driving. That's what like sort of shocked me, is like I was sitting in my living room, I had looking at some dumb screen or something with the VR helmet on, and I loaded in, and then I was like already driving, and I was just like, holy crap, just sort of that surreal feeling was very cool. With other games and with other parts of Gran Turismo 7, when I'm not actually driving, that's when I would kind of have trouble after a little while with VR sickness. So I really got to get in there more often and try to get my VR legs, so I'm not quite so bad at it. It's not terrible. It's not real bad, but it is a factor that I need to work through. But yeah, I really enjoyed the little bit that I played of Gran Turismo 7 and trying to figure out how that works in VR. It's very cool. It's kind of made me a bit of a believer. Side note, because this is already kind of a side note, but another side note is that I looked up a little bit more about Cyberpunk 2077 in VR. The YouTube videos about it are a bit, what is the word that the Zoomers use? I'm not going to be able to think of it, but they're kind of just made to make a cool looking video or to make you think. Because Cyberpunk 2077 does look great in VR. It looks like, dang, this is ready made. Dang, I could just imagine this being great in VR. I was like, okay, how am I going to do this with a PSVR 2 helmet? How is this actually going to work? Cruising around on Reddit, and people are like, okay, you can do this with whatever VR setup you have. The problem is that it's not made for VR. And so there's a lot of parts that are just kind of dog water, that are just like, it's just janky, and it's not really going to work out for you. But also it's going to take just take a shitload of like twerking with it, and tinkering with twerking. That's funny. Tinkering with all the settings, and you can get it to be pretty okay, but it's never gonna be like good. And so I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. So people were making YouTube videos and they're just like, it's so cool. This is the proper way to play. And now I'm like, yeah, you guys are just trying to get views on your videos. Touche, touche. You got me. So I'm probably not going to try that. At least not that way. At least not right now. Maybe in the future, because I do want to play 2077, but I don't know. There's just a lot of things in my way. So that's my VR minute. Went back and played Hitman 2. I'm trying to do some cleanup on some old, some backlog games. Got about 3/4, probably like 80% actually, through Hitman 2 2018. Actually only had one more level to go, and I did that this past week. Man, Hitman 2 is just it's more of the same of Hitman 1. I got to be honest, and I need to play Hitman 3, obviously. But more of the same is probably the worst thing I could say about it, because Hitman is just it's such a good game. It's so well crafted. The level design is amazing. Just a massive levels for you to play, and so many intricate details, so much replayability. Just the mastery stuff is so much fun.
That's the game you need to buy the PSVR 1 for, because with the adapter dongle, you can hook up your PSVR 1 to your PS5 and play Hitman the trilogy or World of Assassin all in VR. Unfortunately, everyone's waiting for them to port it over, but it's not going to happen.
Well, that's the thing, because I'm already playing Hitman 2 because I bought it a long time ago. I'm playing it on PC. So I don't really care. But if I got got World of Assassination on PC, and then got my dongle out for the PSVR 2, would that sounds like the shortest path to me, right? Like, or am I
Yeah,
missing?
you have the consoles, so the PS5. You buy the game for the PS5. I think because I don't know how well it adapts on the PS.
But you were saying that it's only for PSVR 1. I don't have that. I don't have PSVR
Yeah,
2.
yeah, but you can pick it up cheap now. I mean, you're swimming in cash.
God
You're gonna
dang
buy
it.
the Pro anyways.
I knew I should
So
have told you about my raise.
yeah, you get a raise. Next thing I know, you're drinking every Friday. So on the cast. So yep.
Yeah,
Uh,
not every Friday, just the past 2 Fridays in a row. Um,
uh,
so yeah, I would probably just buy it on Steam, get the dongle, and be able to play it on Steam with my PSVR 2. That is the idea. I guess I haven't really thought about that. I'm gonna move on to something else, because I'm not gonna buy World of Assassination just yet, even though it's on sale and it's
Now
killing me.
I'm not sure if it's compatible with the PSVR 2 because I haven't looked into it, but I do know that there's
Mm,
the Prey Dog mod for Unreal, and that's the big mod that a lot of people have been using to uh, essentially take an Unreal game and
okay.
make it VR, a 2D or a flat screen game, and make it VR compatible.
Yeah.
So that's something you might want to look into. Once again, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's necessarily PSVR 2 capable. I haven't actually looked too much into the whole. I want to be able to get the adapter and play my PSVR 2 on PC. They were sold out for a long while, and so
Mm,
like I'll wait for a little bit, eventually get them. Just also heads up to anyone who wants to buy that adapter. Uh, Double check. You're probably gonna also have to buy a Bluetooth adapter because a lot of people
yeah.
were having trouble syncing up their
So
controllers.
I did.
It's not an expensive add-on. It's like a 10 or 20 buck TP Link, Bluetooth adapter
So
via USB.
so
So
I did Google this a bit, and Google AI or whatever AI I was looking at was saying that the cheapest one it will work, but people complain more about the problems. And the true TP Link official one from PlayStation is like 4 times more expensive, but people have the least problems with it. So I don't know if that's just if people actually have less problems or if people are just more likely if they're cheaper to complain about it because they're already paying very little, and I don't know what the deal is there, but I did read that, and so I think it was like $10 for the cheap version and like $40 for the official version, or it might have been more than that. But I remember being like, "Dang, that's expensive." But if I'm gonna do this, I may as well get the expensive one so I don't have to fiddle with it. So if anybody knows, I guess feel free to leave a comment about that because I would like to know what your personal experience is with it. But yeah, I it'll be a minute, but yeah, that would probably be the way that I would go. But anyway, Hitman 2, I was like, I need to finish this game. I'm really glad I did. Man, it is. Did you ever play these games? I can't remember. Did you just kind of bounce off these?
No, I played a bit of the first one, and because of not completing the first one, I didn't bother continuing with the second or third because there's actually a decent story.
Mm,
So,
yeah,
like by the time you get to the third, there's actually the third one had a decent story in it. No, they were also available at one point or another. Like I think I've owned them multiple times on
mm,
on the PlayStation and on the PC. I'm pretty sure they were on Game Pass for a while. So
yeah,
yeah, they're easy enough to come across, and they're the only game that I can think of that did episodic content well.
yeah. It was
Everything else
proper.
that's ever tried to do episodes has crashed and burned for the most part. I mean, there has to be at least one or two others out there, but it really did like anything else, I remember, Steam. They're the ones who pretty much kickstarted the whole uh, episode stuff prior to Half Life. They did
Yeah.
Sin
Mhm.
episode 1, and never made an episode 2. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
that's that agile frickin' scrum mentality that those guys do, which if you're in project management, you understand what that means. And programming, those that's how they think about things, so that's why they do episodic stuff. Or that's why they thought it would work. Um, yeah, cuz like an episode or one level of Hitman, if you're willing to replay it, which if you're not, then you're kind of boned. But if you're willing to replay an episode of Hitman, a level of Hitman, then it will take you, 10 to 20 hours probably, somewhere in there, maybe 15 hours or so, to kind of do everything in that level and really get all the meat off of the bone. Because there's so much discovery in it. I like, I mean, I guess there's something about it that maybe just doesn't really catch you, Joe, but I would really encourage you to go back and with Hitman, with any of them, I don't know, maybe three
I've never
screwed
said
up.
I wasn't into it. I just don't have the time.
I know,
I've
but
never
like,
once said that I wasn't into it.
no,
I
no, no,
mean,
no, no. I
you're
know
you're making
that.
it seem like I'm actively against it.
No,
I
no, no,
actually
no.
watch
I know that
more of the
you.
series speed runs than I have played the games.
No, what I'm trying to say is, I think that it's worth your time to go back. Like nobody has time to play everything, but like this is one of those things where, like, the first half hour, first hour of playing it, you're like, okay, this is fine. Which I know is like the worst way to like advertise a game, but like after you play a while and you discover weird things, and you're like, oh wait, I could do it this way, and then you look at like their objectives, like do the whole thing without without changing out of the like clown suit, and you're like, how the freak would that even be possible? And you're doing other objectives, and you get to a point where like, wait a second, you could do it all in the clown suit. That kind of like that discoverability where you're like, oh dang it, and it all kind of clicks together like a good puzzle. Um, that's what's fun about these games, I think. And so, but you can't get there unless you kind of give it a little bit more time than then maybe you at first think it's worth it. I know that you don't dislike them or anything, but I'm just saying like it might be worth your time, and I would encourage you if you ever have a moment to spend another 3 hours on something that maybe you've already gone through, so that you can get to a higher plane of existence on it. Anyway, so that's what I'm playing. It's been fun.
Once again, like I said, I like the game. I unfortunately I don't have the 10 to 15 hours to really get my full time out of a complete because
Yeah,
yes, it's a great game. The sandbox mayhem is the adaptability and how things can go terribly wrong. It's a great game. I highly recommend it to a lot of people. It's
yeah,
just unfortunately time is the most valuable commodity, and I only have so much time to play a lot of games, and I would rather play. Uh, I am picky at what I spend my time on,
that's fine.
and
I know, I
unfortunately, I'm
know.
not gonna. If they bring it back to, if they end up bringing porting it over to the PSVR 2, then yeah, I'll totally end up doing that. But
Mm,
unfortunately, it's one of those things that my PSVR 1's pretty much put away. So there's only like one or two things that I haven't got a chance to really play off the old PSVR 1 that I'm ever gonna try to pick it up for. And
yeah,
it's one of those like I screaming like top of the mountains like, hey, port it over. I think it'll be one of the greatest things ever to be brought into be played in VR, because that first one was super awesome, and kind of just crazy. The fact that they did it, like they did all three games, and it was good on them for that. But
yeah.
it's, at the same time, it's just like, you know, I have kids, man. Like
Yeah,
I do
time
not
is
like
of the essence here.
you're asking me to spend like a good like
No.
in order 3 hours is not enough time to really get into the game. So I mean, like I said, you honestly you're gonna have to spend 10-15 hours, and that's probably going to be on only like two maps, which
Yeah.
the game, you get your money's worth with the game, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would say if you ever do have time, or anybody else who's listening to this, if you ever do have time, and only, let's say you only have 10 hours to give to this, or you're only going to give it whatever 10 hours, I would say just stick with one map and see how far you can get through the map. And maybe you can get it all, but like just see how far you can get and see the depths that this map. I mean, you're talking about, whereas like Bethesda games are like an ocean of content that's an inch deep. This is exactly the opposite. This is a puddle of content that is like 10 miles deep. And that's probably the best thing I could say about it. The only other things that I wanted to say is that I'd really like it if the Metal Gear guys, whoever ends up having to make that, I feel like they could take a page out of this, out of Hitman. I think that it's different. It's a different kind of game that they would have to make, but I really think that taking a page from these modern Hitman games would really do a big service to that franchise, even if uh, uh, can't forgot his name, even if Stranding guy
Hideo Kojima.
Kojima, I know. Even if Kojima got a hold of it again, I think that I would still give him the same advice to take a page out of these games because
Metal Gear 5 was pretty much like halfway there. They
okay,
already did, it
that's
was
good then.
level based, a little minor sandbox level, and you come at it in any way you want. Now, granted, you don't, you got to do a lot of messing around like early on before they modded certain things. But yes, it was already like kind of
Okay,
there.
well then
So
then you can just say, Nick, you were right in the future before, in your own blind way, blind pig find an
so
acorn.
yeah, Metal Gear 5 is the best gameplay wise. Story,
Mm,
non-existent. But as far as just sure playing sandbox stupidity,
mm.
that's totally worth it. But yeah, anyways,
So
Hitman, what I would recommend is there are on YouTube, there's, I can't remember this one guy, his mainstream, but he does a he does like a yearly challenge, and he puts up money. I forget, it's not like a crazy amount, but
yeah,
like it's like a couple hundred or $1,000 or something like that. And he sets up these levels with these different challenges, and it's great to see. He,
gosh,
he did like all of Hitman 3, like so different, like the 5 different maps or something like that originally,
mm,
and just to see like having like 5 or 6 targets there, and to see people speed run them. He had different categories too: most creative kills, most
mm,
like just this, that, the other thing, and just to watch people who are truly talented at this game go,
Dude.
like
Yeah.
y- go to work in a clockwork system. They pull out the glitches, they pull out the things like they make kills from across the map that you just didn't think was possible, like shooting through pinhole, like
Dude, yeah.
precision. It's insane. It's
There's
beautiful. Or
there
like
it
causing a distraction on the other side of the map just to have the guy walk across and then eventually set up an explosion and you just have it, chandelier fall on a dude while killing someone else simultaneously.
I
It's a Rube Goldberg, thing. It's amazing.
I think my favorite thing was Giant Bomb. I had a subscription
That was pretty good.
to Giant Bomb for like 5 minutes, and um, it was during Christmas, and so they had Hitsmas, which was Hitman. I guess it was Hitman One, and they would wrote certain things on pieces of paper, and they would draw them out of a hat. And it was the only one I remember is Brad and Dan, and so Brad went first, and he drew like whatever, and he managed to get it. And then Dan went, and he got really close, but like he couldn't like achieve it. And I was like, dang, that is such a freaking good idea, because it was super interesting because they had to do like these, like you have to kill this person with the butter knife, wearing the donkey suit, um, and watching them try to contort themselves to get that was top tier entertainment. And I wish I would like to see somebody else do it. So you don't have to tell me that guy. Like who is that guy that you said that did it on YouTube? Do you remember?
I unfortunately don't. Like,
Okay,
if
you'll
you
tell me
like,
later.
I think if you just look up like Hitman tournament and it was
Mm,
something like 1,000 or 1,500 or something like that. It
yeah,
wasn't like crazy money, but it was more like bragging rights.
yeah,
And the people, it was just completely stellar how they were doing this. And he's done it for a handful of years now, so there has to be enough content out there, like enough video series.
yeah.
Uh, they're like it's like hour long. He super cuts all these contestants who submit their times and he'll do like the top 10 and then you're like, oh wow, they did all these kills within like within 30 seconds. You can't like he they literally killed everyone on the map like that needed to be killed within 30 seconds. You can't get far faster than that. And then the next guy will end up cutting it by like 5 seconds or something like
Wow.
that. You're like, it's
Okay.
insane. It really
Mm,
is. um it's
yeah.
one of those things I know I'll never get that good, and you
Mm.
just appreciate watching people who are.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. So Hitman, it's like I know it's a little late, but hey, better late than never. So good on you for getting to that too.
Yeah. I wanted to clean it up.
So for me, I've been playing Pacific Drive. So this game is has been on my radar for a while. I just haven't been really able to put much time into it, just with my crazy schedule. And I don't know. This is a weird one. I like it because of this. You're you're pretty much the whole concept is you're kind of entering a closed off zone, like think like a Chernobyl-esque event, but something having to do with the government just closing off an area, unknown reasons why, and you're there to kind of investigate what happened, and then like they literally build walls. They build walls to keep whatever it is out slash people, or keep you out, keep things in, and you kind of get warped or like sucked in through a black hole while like driving on the outer wall and you get pulled into this event. And it's just you and your car. You find a station wagon that you soup up, and you're trying to. You hear the survivors or the people, the townsfolk, or at least some people that live in the vicinity on the radio, and they're trying to kind of guide you there to a safe zone. The whole area is just constantly fluxing in. It's like a pocket, just the dimensional like void. So some areas are stable, and then next thing you know, like the ground will just start to disappear, or like things will shift, and so that's how you take damage essentially. But your whole point of the game is to scavenge, get more story, and soup up your car. Uh, you're literally replacing panels. You're trying to grab raw materials to upgrade things, and it's just a kind of a chill game, but also just really weird. And I can't really say too much about it. I mean, it's It's a really fun little game. I mean, I haven't gotten too far into it. I've had unfortunately, it's like kind of roguelite, I guess, in a way, because when you get into a level, you're going from point A to point B, and you have objectives you're supposed you kind of hit along the way. But unfortunately, if you I say the best way to play this is like on a PlayStation,
Mm,
because that way you can suspend, like, when you if you have to leave. But if you have to shut off your computer, you're either gonna lose your progress, or if you try to quit and save, you will get penalized,
mm,
for not completing your run, as it were.
okay.
So I've had to lose some progress multiple times due to life. So it's just like, so not only am I losing the time that I put into that run, but then so therefore I have to replay that segment, and I'm getting a little bit penalized, on that one. So I've gone ahead and, like, that's the only that's a it's a run based game in that sense. But the music, there's like, you're in the car, there's music radio stations, stuff like that. There's a bunch of stations. None of it is on the same station. Like, you can just toggle back and forth, and the numbers will keep on changing, because that's the kind of feeds into the lore of the game is, you
Like
know, nothing's stable.
how much survival is there in this game? Because that's what I'm seeing in some of this stuff is that it's sort of a survival game based that way.
It's you're like scavenging for things.
Okay.
You're how do I say it? It's not like this a survival game where you're like chopping down trees,
Right.
but you are looting and breaking down. Like, you're going through boxes, chests. You are building
Finding
certain
buildings
things, like,
and figuring out what's going
yeah,
on in there and then getting
and
stuff out of
you're
it.
building certain tools to like harvest certain things. Like, kind of you have to get an impact hammer to break a certain glass to get a certain energy source.
Yeah.
And like, you got to get a vacuum to get, like, essentially like neon kind of gas kind of type of thing. So there are certain tools specific that you need. um I didn't I don't find it as encumbersome as like a Rust or an Ark or something like that. It's not like
Mm,
that kind of survival, but then again, it's also a single player game.
yeah.
So that's one thing I like, and it's a strong story game. Like, you're playing it because it's weird, kind of has that whole X Files or something like Alan Wake, just the odd vibe to it, and that's kind of what's getting me through it, because I really like just how.
The Pacific Northwest is definitely that Alan Wake type vibe. Yeah, I see what
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot of fun, for a simple game. I've only put, unfortunately, like, I haven't put, like, a crazy amount of time in. I put, like, well, the time I lost, so in game, I put about 4 hours into it. I
Uh,
put about maybe, like, 6 or so into it, but I've lost a few things here and there. So
well,
yeah.
it's got a pretty good rating on Steam. I think I saw it was like 9 out of 10 or something on Steam. And it's not like low poly, but you can tell it's a little bit. They're shaving off a little bit on the polygons there, but it still looks really good. The colors and stuff look great, and it looks
It's not quite cell shaded, but it has that, like,
yeah.
it's not meant to be super high glossy. But as you go on, it just the atmosphere gets just more and more eerie, and it's just
It's a
I said
good
I don't want you
idea.
can't really say too much about it, because it's a story. It's mostly about the story.
Yeah, yeah. But it's a good idea. It looks like it differentiates. You know, you're in the car, you're out of the car, you're doing this, you're doing that. Because I thought it was just a walking sim, but in a car when I first saw it, and now after what you're saying and what I'm kind of seeing here, it does look like it's quite a bit more to it, and then the story also being pretty interesting too. Seeming like.
Yeah, later on, you can kind of chart your own path type of deal, and you have objectives you're supposed to hit. It's uh, I want to see this to the end. I'm really interested in that.
How
We'll
long
see
is
how
it
much
supposed to
time I
be? Do
have
you
to
know?
invest.
Did you feel
I
like you're
actually
halfway
don't
through
know.
or what?
I I have no idea.
Okay.
I would say, I don't know. I feel like I'm at least a third through, maybe. But honestly, I haven't looked this one up on how long to beat or nothing like that. So
It can't be
I
too
don't feel
long.
like it's
It doesn't seem
yeah,
like
it's
it's like
exactly it. I
more
don't
than
feel like it's terribly
20
long.
hours. Probably like a 15, 10 hour game, something like that.
But it's one of those things that I've learned through my mistakes that when I sit down, I have to learn to commit. But I'm playing on PC, so I mean, I guess I could just leave it idle, but I just don't leave my computer on idle, and
No.
I don't necessarily trust my apps and everything or things to stay open while the computer goes to sleep. Unlike like an Xbox or a PlayStation, those
Mm.
suspend modes are reliable enough now. So the PS. I feel like my PC. I always feel like my PC is like a PS4 when you try
Dude,
to put it in system mode. It's like it's a crapshoot.
if the app is running on Steam, it is counting hours. So I try to be very careful about that, where I don't leave any apps running. Like I don't even like go get a drink. I get all my drinks and stuff beforehand, go to the bathroom beforehand, and then I have my gaming session, and then I just play until I'm basically done or whatever. If I do have to go to the bathroom, then I will, but more often than not, I just can't trust it. So it's it's a hard one there. But the game does look pretty cool. I had not heard of this really, and but you have my interest peaked. I probably won't play it, but it definitely seems worthwhile.
Yeah, like I said, it's a nice change of pace. I like it because it's different and it's not uh it's not it's not something you'd normally find, and I'm glad I'm giving it a shot for sure. All right, now we'll get to what we've been watching. So,
Uh, Sorry.
yeah, what's up?
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so yeah, I late to the party here, but Solo Leveling. I watched Solo Leveling, and it was fine. It was not particularly good, but it was not bad. It was. I think I gave it like a 6.8, 6.9, somewhere in there, overall. And yeah, there it is. Okay, so basically, the problems with it are that the side characters are bland, and they don't really do anything. Um, like the girl, not his sister, but like this, maybe I guess love interest, eventual love interest. She's not a bad character. They just don't have her doing anything. They just kind of have her moping because she's like the medic or whatever. Uh, and
Yeah, she's traumatized from the first instance,
yeah,
and she's
there was a word, there was a phrase that one of my D&D buddies used, that I hesitate to repeat. So I'm not going to repeat it. But anyway, so I'm just going to breeze right past that. So she would be cool if she would really do anything. But yeah, she's like traumatized with PTSD. So she's not really doing anything. Besides that, the other side characters are just bland. And there's an older man character that I was like, he could be cool, but you're just not really having him do anything. So that's kind of a down point for me. Enemies in the story have all been sort of silly. Um, they're just not. They're just also, again, they're just sort of there. The animal enemies, the actual monsters or whatever, some of them are kind of cool, but the actual human, true, like adversaries, not really particularly good. There's if I say BBEG, meaning big bad evil guy, his team and their story is boring and seems to have no point. Like they're driving around or flying around, and I'm like, I don't know what you guys are doing or why it matters to me at all, other than the fact that I know that you're gonna have a confrontation with the hero at some point. So I didn't
that's
really.
the brother, right? The brother of the one dude, the other guy, the bad guy.
Yeah, and I was just like,
So
I was just like, I mean, I know, like, show me that you're doing something other than like, oh, you're the brother of the guy that I killed or whatever. Besides that, it's like they keep showing them and then punching through walls and then flying around in helicopters and doing stuff. And I was like, yeah, but what did you like? What did they do themselves? There's not really enough there. And I think it's because the manga or the manhwa made it make sense because chapter to chapter, they're trying to build it. Whereas when it's an anime and it's a single season, you're you're just kind of stuck in that. So they're trying to jam those things in, and they just don't have time to make it make sense on a 24 episode season, across true, anime seasons. It might make more sense, but overall, I was like, yeah, I'm not really seeing it right now. Probably gonna work out. So anyway, so and then the only other
I warned you in episode in our podcast episode 63. Man, I warned you.
that was literally a lot of episodes ago. So yeah, I just knew that I was gonna watch it eventually, but anyway, so only other issue I had that off the top of my head at least is that there's some sort of, I guess, I don't know what you call it, continuity in a way, that he goes from fighting the wolves in that one episode early on to in the same episode or subsequent episode fighting the giant snake. And I was like, one of these things is not like the other. The power disparity between these two just doesn't really make sense for what he would be able to accomplish in that amount of time. So I was a little bit like, yeah, I guess, whatever, man. It just seemed like they were just doing it so they could have a big boss for him to fight. So
The whole concept is he's on the verge of death all the time, and the only reason why he even lives through the one incursion is because he levels up and he gets all his HP back, and just to continue to fight for his life, just so he can level up in the progress. Like that's kind of the sequence. I think the problem with it is, yeah, there was too many people and not enough explanation of the overall story, because what they touch on in the very beginning is uh, Jeju, which is a small island off the south of
right.
Korea. That's where like they had a major event, major gate, or like they're trying to fight, and they lost, they failed. But because it's an island, therefore, I'm assuming the island has gone like run amok, but it hasn't spread to the mainland because it's an island. So they got lucky, and that's why the kind of the backstory, one of the stories in the background is the elite teams are trying to build a unit to go back and like reclaim or fight back in Jeju. Um, but once again, that they don't really explain it very well. And if you don't know what Jeju is, it doesn't matter. But like because I live there in Korea and I've been there, I'm like,
Wow.
okay, so I
It's
understand.
like you going
Uh,
home. Like you have PTSD from your time in Jeju.
I have PTSD from Korea, but that's on a different. That's a completely different reasons. Um, People asking me
Are,
if I'm from America, and then asking me, do I know Jesus? Right?
are
Like
you an E
people,
rank or a D
rich
rank hero?
strangers talking to you. You're just like, no, leave me alone. Please stop knocking at my door. Don't ring my doorbell. I do not want to talk to you about your Mother Earth God and your Skyland.
Why not?
Some really bad Christian spin-offs over there. So yeah,
The
huge
Bible
PTSD on
too.
that front.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if it's the
Okay.
greatest book ever, greatest story ever, they should make a sequel.
Yeah, for real.
Hollywood coming at you.
Run it
So
back.
there's the no, but there was not enough story to that.
Yeah.
That was the thing is like you're watching it because of the action. The main character doesn't really develop much. It's all like a precursor, a prologue to the
Mm,
real thing. But they're just, it's just a power fantasy. The idea is he's going to collect the MacGuffins he needs to magically cure his mom.
mm,
Um, but they don't really explain much else to that. There's not really a lot of progress to anything.
yeah.
And then you realize, yes, humans are the real monsters because they turn on each other and all that stuff. And
Oh yeah,
it's just
there's a
like,
little bit
yes,
of that. Who's the real monster here? Yeah, yeah, that is a little bit overplayed. But I mean, I just could have used like a little bit of more humanization of one of the enemies, one of the adversaries. Just like show me why you're. I mean, and like I said, the manhwa probably is like, we're going to show you a little bit and then we're going to go back to our main hero. So we build it up and it'll all pay off later. It makes more sense. You can tolerate it more in a chapter by chapter basis. But in a TV show that is literally taking on 3 chapters at a time, I feel like they should have gotten more notes from the original author and said, hey, how can we maybe add a little bit of color here to make the bad guys more interesting or feel like more worthwhile. But it is what it is, and I do want to talk about the good things about it. I think the start of this was really good. Probably why it probably caught fire so quickly, because the start has a really it's gonna catch your attention. It's like, oh, this dude and like this crazy stuff happens pretty much immediately, and all these people die and like all this stuff, and he ends up,
If you like the anime Gantz, then it's kind of the same, like, abrupt, shock value starter, is how I feel. It's just like a lot
yes,
of,
they took a page from Gantz
it
for
has a really
sure.
strong, surprising shock.
Yeah, they definitely took a page from Gantz, which not to say that it's like Gantz or that it's as good as Gantz because it's not, but it definitely does take a page from there. So you're like, oh dang, they're going for real on this. So that I enjoyed, I respected that and kind of enjoyed it, and I was like, okay, I kind of get this. And then the rule set that they've created, that he's created, is good. Overall, they don't harp on it too much. It's there and they remind you of it enough. So that's good. The main character, he's a bit more realistic of a thinker. He's not overly confident or he's not overly deprecating to himself where he's like, oh, I'm just a little poop bag and I just need to just die. He's not like that, but he thinks about as much as I would hope that he would think. He's definitely bringing up things before I've had a chance to think of them, so that's good, and I appreciate that. He's not annoying, which is also probably the best thing you can say about any anime character ever, is that they are not annoying. And then the last thing is that I could say that the key fights are pretty well animated. They're pretty cool, and I was like, okay, very very good fights so far, which is probably the best thing I could ask for in an anime like this. It's kind of the bread and butter, gotta be honest. So that was cool. Overall, I could say
It's a bread and butter because it doesn't have story. I mean,
it better
if you don't
be.
have
Yeah,
story, you at least have to rely on the fights, which the fights are
it's
good.
it's enough. It's
Yeah,
enough of a story. I mean, it's like, what do you like? I'm not really expecting Hamlet out of a Korean anime here. I'm just like fights and okay, you have a goal and you have MacGuffins to get there. I'll deal with it. You just make sure the fights are well animated. So my overall is that it has some solid ideas, but a lot of boilerplate choices, and the bad guy plot lines don't really seem to go anywhere so far. Yeah, so that's kind of where I landed, like a 6.8, 6.9, not quite 7. I don't really think. If you said 6 or 6.5, I would say, yeah, that's I could definitely be talked down to a 6.5 for sure. But otherwise, definitely worth my time. Not the best thing I'm gonna watch, but it was all right.
yeah. I don't remember what I said back then. I would say it's, looking back on it, time like 6 months later after the fact, I'm like, yeah, it's a six.
Yeah,
The
after
fact that
time,
they're
I could
opening up
probably
their
see
whole
that. Sorry, go ahead.
Thinking back, like his whole guild endeavor is just literally screaming for trouble. There's no like even I remember watching and being like, that seems like a dumb idea. He's like, yeah, I just need you guys to sit here while I solo everything. Don't worry. I'm like, that's not sending red flags to anybody, and no one's going to talk about, hey, I'm in a
Mm,
guild with this dude just rolling by himself, just crushing things. Like everyone's going to look at you real quick, and you're supposed to be hiding your, who you
yeah.
are. So I mean, it became nonsensical in that point, and I really checked out at that point. It's
It,
just like,
it
yeah,
doesn't really pass the fridge test. It doesn't really pass that, like, hang on a minute. Wait a second. Yeah. Yeah. So on second watch, I'd probably give this probably maybe even a little lower, but I think the things that are good about it do kind of bring it up a little bit there. But yeah, it's things you bring up are definitely valid, and yeah, it could be better. I don't know how much
you could watch worse, but if you want some good action scenes, and just like then by all means, like I said, I do agree with you though. Like, what do you expect from a Korean manhwa? Like, that's the thing is, I think there's a lot lacking in the Korean anime slash manhwa like scene. I think that there's
it's getting better for sure.
yeah, it is, but at the same time, I feel like there's something like super missing, like because there was God not God Trials, but there was something. There was a tournament anime, and that like really had potential too. Until I realized everyone has the same ears and nose in the entire
Oh,
series. Like all the guys, all the girls, they all have the same ears and nose.
can't
Like,
unsee that.
and it just I could not unsee it, so I had to dip out by like episode 5. I'm like, it bothered me so much. But no, it was like I said, there's only a handful that I would actually recommend to people at this point for
Mm,
Korean manhwa. As things go on, things will get better. But
yeah,
right now, I feel like unless if you're looking for something specific, if you want like a certain type of drama or something, but as the
yeah.
overall action stuff goes, there's only like one or two
I
that
mean,
really.
if you are like a shonen, shonen first, like make shonen great again or whatever, where you just only watch shonen, then and you're completely fresh out, for sure. Solo leveling is gonna scratch that itch for you. Whether I'd watch a season 2 of this, right now, I'd lean toward no. The only way that I think I would watch it is if there's literally nothing else that I'm interested in watching, and I just needed something to kill some time. I do think that the voice actors in this did pretty good. I think that they did their job, and I could have sworn this was Matt Mercer, but it didn't quite sound like him, and so I had to look it up, and I was like, okay, it's thankfully not Matt Mercer, because I was like, I know this is Matt Mercer just trying to hide himself, and I was like episode 4 or 5, and I was like, if this is Matt Mercer, I cannot watch any more of this. I'm just not gonna be able to unhear it. So that's all I have to say about that. Joe, what have you been watching?
Well, I'm about halfway through the new Terminator Zero anime that dropped on Netflix. We knew about it from the leak that happened before,
Yeah.
uh, so finally getting around to watching this. It's it's all right so far. Now, like I said, I haven't finished it yet, so real quick, I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna say what I think it is early on, but I also think it has potential to be better, and I think it's a 6 right now. So kind of similar to solo leveling, in a sense. I think solo leveling is actually maybe worse now that I think about it. So maybe 5-5. Um,
Jeez.
but it's
Okay.
once again, I'm a big story person, and I think this is where it potentially has a chance. But I also think this all right, so the good stuff with Terminator Zero is uh the music overall is it like in the background and stuff like that is pretty decent. They did one little bit where they do the original theme nod, but then that
Mm,
they just tease it for a second, then they drop it, which I felt was a letdown, and they could have
mm,
done a better sequence with that. But the animation and the cinematography are really decent. Kind of reminds me of something like kind of like Animatrix or something like that back in the day. It's a very much feels like a Western anime style. It's supposed to be was it? I think it's being produced by Project or Production IG, and it's like Skydance. Is I think the guys who are doing it. So, but yeah, anime the quality looks great. The story, I'm not going to go spoiling anything right now. I mean, I think this it's still a little early, so it's kind of like a little all over the place. There's a lot of little nitpicks here and there that keep on adding up, and I'm like, it certain things just aren't making enough sense that I think they can salvage quite a bit in the back end with a couple explanations. I have a couple theories already and stuff like that because there's just very much the core concept of this is it's all taking place instead of being in America, this is in Japan.
mm,
So that's a big twist right there. They are not it's not about the John Connor at all. No mention of the Connors at period. So that he is the leader of the resistance is not the leader of resistance overseas, as
mm.
we so that's kind of a new spin. Um,
Not my Terminator.
they yeah, but they start off in the future and they're led by an oracle. I'm like, okay,
Oh wow.
whoop, yeah, like so it's an old woman who just randomly picks um main tough girl to go back in the past.
Because like it
And
has a big flash in the first episode. The first scene is pretty cool, but it says 2022, and then it flashes back after that scene to 1997, which is apparently uh that was
Judgment
like
Day.
when Judgment Day, yeah, it was 97, because Terminator 2 set that as like 97 was the time when all that stuff happens.
97 August 29th.
which
So
was yesterday as we record this. So anyway,
yeah, so that was kind of the their wink and nod to redropping it out. So
yeah,
granted 2 years later, but whatever. So I mean, we missed all the good apocalypses. I mean, Akira was it 2019? I mean,
yeah. I think Evangelion is set in like 2015 or some shit. It's crazy.
so but anyways, yeah, it's one of those things that there's without being able to spoil or deep dive. There's just the main scientist in this, you get to see that he has dreams of the future. They don't explain anything else. He doesn't tell anybody anything else, and he's just like, I have dreams of the future, and so he can see the apocalypse.
Yeah, like the
I have
opening is
theories
him.
behind him.
That's how they introduce him. Is like he's holding his sons as like the nuke goes off and like fries his body, and then he wakes up and it's from a dream.
And it's essentially, and that's when they make there's several references to the Terminator movies, and that's pretty much kind of the reference that Sarah has in Terminator 2, where she sees her, like the shaking the playground chain, as it were, as the
Right.
kids get vaporized. Well, in this case, he's embracing his kids as it happens. They for an adult show, like they don't hide the gore, but man, this
Mm.
Terminator can't kill with a damn.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that first scene, he's like, dude, he can't hit the broadside of a barn, dude. He is shooting with a
well,
machine
between
gun
that
everywhere.
and he has this objective to take out these, like, this main girl's like, we have to protect these kids because they'll be dead by morning. He literally picks up a kid and starts walking with it. I'm like, just snap him like a twig. Just end it right there. Like,
Yeah, I had a
story plot,
similar.
like,
Yeah.
that plot armor is super thick, okay? It's like there's a lot of things like that that just really are jarring. So if you just drop all that common
Mm,
sense and just do your popcorn movie bit, that's where this comes in as a 6. You're like, okay. And once again, I'm hoping
mm,
a lot of things get explained in the back end for like main story plots, and like that. I don't want to spoil anything with my theories or anything like that. It's only an 8 episode
yeah.
season. So yeah, I know, like, I know where I think it's gonna go. It's kind of funny though, because some of the other things they did, well, I'll just, that aren't spoilers, is I think it was like the one of the homages to the original is she says
Hang on a second.
instead
Hang on a second. I'm
of
losing you. Hang on a second. I'm losing you
oh,
there
what
for a
was it? No,
second. Hang on. Hang on. Hang on.
um,
Yep.
yeah, or come with me. All right,
Sorry,
lost
Joe.
connection there.
So yeah, we lost some connection. Okay, so can you restart that and tell me? You were saying start that story over again. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So one of the other references to the original series is saying when the hero from the future, human, says to this girl, "You can stay and die, or come with me." And I'm like, all right, that's a different, like, that's the same meaning, just different vocabulary. Come with me if you want to live. I'm like, I
Yeah,
found that funny. I'm like, all right, because
that's a
they've
nod.
done that a few times already.
Yeah.
They show like kids playing with, like early on, they show like showing kids just shooting at each other with guns in a toy store, and I'm like, okay, that's totally been in Terminator as well. So they hit some of those hallmark bits.
I
But yeah, just a lot of
appreciate
questionable stuff here and there.
I appreciate that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's some continuity or some like suspend disbelief stuff that they're kind of asking you to do. In that first scene, there's a couple points where, yeah, the Terminator could not really hit anything with his machine gun, which I guess, machine guns are hard to control as it is, but he is like a super strong machine. Also, he does get a hold of her foot, and I was just like, well, and she like unties her shoe and it slips off, and I was like, yeah, but he's a machine capable of like crushing metal with his hands. He could just literally dig into your foot and break your bones, and then so that kind of stuff is like, yeah, I kind of wish I hadn't thought of it because now it's in my brain. But that stuff, it's like, okay, what do you want from them? They wrote a story. It should be better or it should be different, but it's not. So whatever. The thing that I can kind of criticize though is that this animation does seem pretty framey. Um, it's definitely not on twos, at least not in that episode one, not all of it at least. Some of the scenes in the apartment, I think the first scene is on probably twos, and so it does seem pretty smooth. Some of the scenes in the apartment where there's not a lot of movement going on, the movement that there is, it looks very framey. It looks like it's on. I'm not really an animator, but I would guess like threes or fours, maybe less than that. So I can kind of criticize that in some ways. Not the end all be all. If you are not someone that is obsessed with smooth, ultra smooth animation, then it's probably not going to bother you. But it is something that I noticed. Uh,
Funny, I didn't notice that at all, but I'm also watching it off my phone,
oh, if
so
it's on
it's
your
just
phone,
like
you're probably not going to see it. I'm watching it on a
yeah.
60 inch, C2. So it was more apparent to me.
I'll
Um,
say, coming from you who likes, who like, is all about that, like you don't have a problem with the Spider-Man stuff or the games that are coming out that do that. So I was like, that's kind of funny to hear that from you because I
it's
wasn't expecting
probably
that.
because Spider-Man is consistent. I'm guessing, and this probably jumped from twos down to fours or fives or something like that. And
That's
so,
funny because that's why I like the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or whatever. The second one I didn't like because the second one was inconsistent. I
yeah, oh,
felt
you thought so?
because
Okay.
yeah, I thought the second one was inconsistent. Overall, it was better, but when it did drop, I really noticed that one. And as choppy as the first one was, it was consistently choppy through the thing, so I was okay with that. And so that's why I found it interesting that when the second one, were like, oh, you're generally better as a whole on the second, but then it occasionally dips.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one I didn't notice the dipping, but I did
I,
notice
I,
like
I,
I'll give them credit for the quality.
I did, and there was a point where the dad is walking away from the camera, and it looks very floaty. Um, and then I think that they probably there's some stuff early on with they use some 3D that looks fine, but they're trying to fit in their 2D animation into the 3D, and it stands out. They do their best. They do their best. I imagine with the time that they had, but it just kind of stood out to me. So I could just be critical of those things. And I'm just not deep enough in. I haven't even finished the first episode, but those are some
Okay.
things that I noticed, and I just defer to you for the remainder of it. Might watch some more of this. It's on Netflix, so it's very easy for me. It's like low hanging fruit for me to be able to watch. But if there's other stuff, and I am watching a couple other things that will displace this on you know and I'll watch those things before I watch this. But
I
not
think it's gonna
terrible.
be
Not
totally easy
terrible.
to watch. I recommend probably giving this a shot so far. I'm like I said, I'm in episode 4 right now.
Mm.
They kind of talk about the timeline a little bit, which has always been a weird, muddy thing for Terminator. And one of
Yeah,
the
it's
things is
tough.
like, they have to send the human back right away, or else they'll lose their window to stay within the current timeline. And I'm like, okay, that makes a little more sense opposed to the traditional like question of, well, why don't you just send your person before the Terminator? But they essentially open a pocket, dimension. They open, around the same time. You got,
Because the
and
future's always
I
changing or
have
something like
different.
that. Yeah.
I can argue, the whole Terminator concept timeline to no end because,
It's
it's like that's a cluster for sure.
I mean,
But yeah,
it's like anime or really anything that you watch on a screen. If you're willing to suspend that this like disbelief and that these cartoons are real people, then you can watch this and enjoy it. If you're willing to suspend that these actors are just spouting words from a page, then you can enjoy it. So it's like time travel stuff. If you're willing to suspend disbelief that this is all time travel, then you can kind of enjoy it. And if you're not, then maybe you should move on. But that being said, they have to kind of once they establish a rule set, they do have to kind of stick with it. And
well,
if they
the
don't, then you're
thing
kind
is,
of effed.
they brought it up, which is, hey, that's more than most. And the fact is, it kind of gives me hope that they're gonna talk more about it in the latter bit. And I think there's going to be more about the concept of just jumping back in time. 'Cause, I think they're gonna. I have a suspicion, at least. That's all I can really say without really giving, because at the moment I give my full thoughts and theories, um, that is major spoiler territory. I like
Yeah.
or what could be potential spoiler territory, but I mean, at least have, and like I said, it just came out. I would like to people to at least give it a shot. So chances are by next week I'll have finished it and I'll go ahead and talk about it more in depth there.
Just blow
Um,
your load next week.
Dude, it's like I said, it's only 8 episodes, it's super easy, and I think it's already better than, like, Solo Leveling, so it's, like, on that front. But then again, I'll say I'm also nostalgic for, like, Terminator, though I have not watched the last couple of movies because
Mm,
I've just not heard good things about them. So
yeah.
the last Terminator movie I've seen was 3, which was sad, but at least had a fun ending, and then I saw the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Ugh.
The TV
So yeah,
show?
I remember seeing that forever ago.
Yeah. What is it? Salvation, where you had Sarah Connor come back. Like her parts in that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Salvation was the Christian Bale one, right?
Maybe that's what I'm not thinking of the right one.
The movie.
It's the one where Sarah Connor, the original actress, comes back and she's like the star or whatever of it. But I
Yeah,
forget.
the only TV show
No,
prior to
this
this
was a
was
movie
Sarah
though.
Connor.
But this was a
Oh,
movie.
that was Dark something, right?
Dark, yeah, something. Anyway, that one had a lot of potential, and the first 15, 20 minutes of that movie are pretty freaking great. And then it's not. But yeah,
Dark Fate. It was
Dark
Dark
Fate,
Fate.
yeah.
Um,
It wasn't
Yeah, so
terrible,
Salvation was
but yeah.
stand corrected. Salvation or whatever was the last one I saw was Christian Bale, and it had
Mm,
the dude from uh Avatar,
we talked
who
about that before. It's a bait and switch. God, they got me.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
it is what it
like I
is.
said, I did kind of like it, though I did absolutely roll the eyes in the back of my head when I heard them make the Terminator noise, um
Yeah.
or whatever for the when they're on the highway or something like that. I think they do, it was either Terminator noise or they did the Inception. Oh, it's Terminator noise for
Oh,
sure. Yeah,
oh.
I'm like, you just copied the sound effects. That's literally the sound effects you pulled over or whatever. I'm like, this is pro bull crap. But other than that, the movie wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
No,
Um,
it just had a lot of potential, and it was like that. Yeah, I mean, but like, man, I just these Terminator movies, at least Salvation and Dark Fate or whatever, um, they're good ideas. They have in different ways. They have a ton of potential, and they're just kind of flubbed. I think because Hollywood doesn't really believe in them or doesn't want James Cameron to rise from the ashes. I don't know. There's a conspiracy in there, a conspiracy theory in there somewhere. So
yeah.
anyway,
Though I did laugh to myself because I'm like, oh man, they couldn't afford Arnie's likeness for this anime. Uh, and I'm like, but good on them for not making a blonde haired, blue eyed Terminator go to Japan at least.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah,
It's, but you can watch this in either Japanese or in English. So I mean, either one you prefer. Um, I'm kind of curious what it sounds like in Japanese, but I'm watching it in English. And yeah, I will most definitely give my thoughts next week. Either I'll say all the bad, but hopefully I'll follow it some good, because there's a lot of, like I said, you guys suspend your disbelief, but at the same time, there's certain, like I said, certain plot holes or certain things that are like, this makes no sense. This really doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
Um, and once again, if your goal is to murder some people's, or at least you're being told that their goal is to murder people, then why aren't they murdering those people? Just
yeah. Not gonna win Anime of the Year, sounds like, but maybe we'll get
hey,
some more out of it.
yeah, it's but coming from Netflix, I guess it ain't bad, at least for now. All right, that's it. Uh, hopefully, hopefully you'll get to watch it, Nick, so I can debate with you on this one. But yeah, we'll see. If you
We'll
guys have made it
see.
this far, well, thank you. And this is another Dead Pixel. This has been episode 90.
90.
And Nick, what are some words of wisdom you can give to the people out there?
Always make sure that you bring a clipboard anywhere that you need access to, because if you have a clipboard and nobody will question you, they'll just think that you are completely well within your rights to be there.
Yep. All right. Also, chances are, if we meet aliens, it'll probably be like Project Hail Mary. So give that one via Nick
Oh
recommendation.
man,
Uh,
yeah.
give that one a read or a listen.
Dude, you
And
should though. Like, yeah, I know you're like you're serious, but you're making a joke because it's the end of the episode. But yeah, Project Hail Mary, legitimately good book. You should listen to the audiobook on that because it's pretty dang good.
yep, I did on your recommendation, and I spoke very highly of it.
That's good.
And that's honestly, it makes a lot of sense. But all right, guys, thanks a lot. Till next time, take it easy.
Bye.